Hey folks, what's going on? It's Jacob coming at you on a beautiful, beautiful day here on the Gold Coast in Australia. Got a brand new video for you today. In this one, we are going to be talking about, whoa, someone's making plenty of noise down there. We're going to be talking about 6 to 7 figure Facebook organic audience building strategies. Okay, so we're going to go back to basics in this one. We're going to talk about how do you set up your profile the right way? How do you set up your Facebook groups the right way? How do you get those things growing? How do you generate engagement? What type of content do you need to put out on these things to nurture your audience, to generate leads, to sell stuff? Got you covered across all of those platforms. There's not that many moving parts, right? I think people overcomplicate it, but there are some particular things that you need to understand. And this goes hand in hand with some of the other videos that are on my channel about this topic as well that you are welcome to check out. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll the intro and then we're gonna cut over to a recording from a live training on this topic that I did in my Facebook group. We've trimmed out a bit of the downtime between questions and bits and pieces, so you can have the edited version, the lean version, if you will. And let me know what you think in the comments. Give the video a like if you get any value from this one. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Push the bell icon so you get notified whenever I drop a new video. We'll roll the intro. We'll jump into it. Let's do it. G'day folks, what's going on? Hope you're all doing very, very well. You got Jacob coming at you with a live today, Monday morning down here in Oz, probably Sunday evening for most of you. But I hope you're all doing really, really well. And we've got some cool stuff to cover today. This is continuing a bit of a series we've been doing over the last few weeks around Facebook organic marketing strategies. So over the last couple of weeks, I've done lives on a couple of different topics all around this. I did a live on offer creation. I did a live on conversation frameworks and 2 different frameworks that you can use in your Facebook organic marketing. One was a longer form one was a shorter form one, depending on where the lead comes from, where the conversation comes from. And then I also uploaded to our guide section in the free Facebook group, as well as onto my YouTube channel last week, kind of like a 30,000 foot overview. So what I'm really trying to build out here is I guess like a bit of an A to Z for the folks who are in here who want to do organic marketing or are already doing it. And maybe they've got some missing pieces. And then for new folks who join the group as well, to give them a pretty structured guide through the main pillars of it. So if you haven't seen any of those previous ones, you can head over to the guide section in my free Facebook group, JC's Insiders, and you'll have the overview there, the offer doc, the offer video, and the conversation frameworks. And then today we're talking about building up that audience so that you've actually got people to have conversations with and make offers to. A couple of important reminders before we kick off this piece, right? It kind of goes without saying, but you're pretty unlikely to hit, 10 to 50K plus months with Facebook organic if you're just selling low ticket, right? It can be done as a complementary thing. That's fine. An additional $100 a day or whatever income stream is awesome. And those things shouldn't be overlooked. But as a core monetization plan, using Facebook organic as your traffic source, it's pretty unlikely. Different story if you're running ads and you can massively crank up the volume really, really quickly. You're still probably unlikely to be highly profitable at that level, but you will, be more likely to be able to scale, is my point. Okay, so keep in mind that for this stuff to work, you're going to need some kind of higher ticket, either on the front end or on the back end. In at least a couple of $1,000 range, ideally, that you either earn a chunky commission on as an affiliate, or it's your own product. And you can, lead off with the low ticket and then have that on the back end. I've got a post that floats around this group that I put up in like 2019 that promotes an affiliate product, and it's a lower ticket on the front end, and then they do some upselling on the back end, and that post is just floated around. And has done tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars off that one post. So, low ticket can work, but you're going to want high ticket in the funnel at some point, is my point. Okay. remembering there's a couple of core components to making this work. You've got the profile, your group, and Messenger. And then if you are jumping on the phone, you've got the Zoom call component to it as well, right? There are like structurally, they're the pillars. This isn't going to happen overnight, right? This is not going to happen overnight. Some people will take months or even years to go from cold to sold. They don't all take that long, but just because you have a conversation with someone today, if they don't buy, they say no, they say later, they say whatever. It's not done, right? And continuing to nurture those relationships, which you don't have to do one-to-one, right? This is why you create content, which we're going to talk about. Continuing to nurture those relationships is a really important thing, because when they are ready, you'll still be front of mind, okay? And the size of your audience does not equal dollars, right? Quality is infinitely more important than quantity. Even to this day, we got this group up to about 5,000 people, and then I did a big cull of people who I knew weren't really engaging, and if they didn't have profile photos, it took a long time. It was very manual and laborious, but it was worthwhile, because I wanted to get rid of people who weren't in the ideal avatar and had been in there for years and not done anything and all that kind of stuff. So now we're only at 3,500 members, but still very, very profitable, right? So it doesn't have to be a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 person Facebook group, right? You don't need that massive audience. Honestly, one of the guys I work with, Travis Sago, he says, which I think is very true, if you can't monetize a small audience, you're probably not going to be able to monetize a big audience. And I think everyone's, or a lot of people at least, are all trying to shoot for these massive numbers. And in reality, they haven't been able to monetize at a small level. So, while they might stumble their way to some cash if they had a bigger audience by sheer volume, it's probably not going to be that successful. Okay, so just focus on quality over quantity with this game would be my tip. Okay, so just a couple of important reminders that I wanted to get on the table. How we're going to structure this is I want to talk about setup, growth, and then we're going to talk two things. So we're going to talk about setup, your profile, setup your group. We're going to talk about growth of both of those things. Then we're going to talk about lead generation, and then we're going to talk about content. Okay, and content covers a couple of different categories. So that's kind of the road we're going to take over the next 40 minutes or so, depending on how long it takes. But really quickly, I think most people have probably got this covered off, but it's worth the reminder. Setting up your profile, a couple of key factors. So I'm going to go ahead and pull mine up. When you're setting it up the right way, right, your core components to this are what goes on up here. And look, this does not need to be fancy. I made this myself in Canva, and I'm like the least graphically gifted person ever. But it's got a call to action to the website. It tells people what I do. It's congruent with this, which is then, if you notice, the name of the group and stuff is all congruent. That's really, really important, congruency in your branding. So you got the cover photo, you got the bio, which also has a link, and you got links down here. If I wanted this to be even perfectly optimized, which I did have for a while, we're just testing the difference. I would just have one call to action here because it's better for people to only have one thing to click on. But I wanted to have the group in there for a little while too, and see if we notice any uptick in members. Then you now can do these featured things as well. Like you can do featured images. So this is a bunch of wins from clients and stuff. And I'll build this out over time. That's only something we just started doing. And then you've got your content reel, right? Like this is a post I put up on the 16th, which was Friday, I think. And so you can see, just talking about different things. And we'll talk about this content in a second, but that's the other main component. And then your friends list, right? So I'm just under 3,000. I recently did a bit of a cull, so I'm, I guess, rebuilding, if you will, kind of pretty methodically, but you'll go through those phases with your profile over the journey. I've been up to the 5,000 and back a couple of times over the years. But they're really your core components of your profile. Just make it explicitly clear when people land what you do. And if you can make it look, a little bit different, I went like super simple, I guess, because I thought, everyone's having all these real flashy cover photos and stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to go bare bones. There's a photo of me sitting on the phone with a glass of wine. I was out at a winery, and I don't mind the photo. And so I was like, that'll do. It's a little bit different. The greenery, you got the hills in the background. it's simple. Whereas you go to a lot of profiles and it's like very marketer heavy, if you will, hypey, bright, like really bright colors and golds and different things. And I'm like, oh, I'll just, I've done that. I've had that stuff. I've had the like traditional authority building type cover photos where it's me talking on stage or me getting an award. Like I've done all those things over the journey. And I just like to change it up and keep it fresh and try different things. So I'll use this one for a little while and then keep an eye on what people are doing and go a little bit different. They're really your core factors to getting it set up. Your cover photo, your bio, and your links. And then the other core components are going to be your friends list, and we're going to talk about that in a second, your content, and now you've got these featured images too, which you can use as a good little trust builder, right? Like so people come in here and they see, I don't know if this is going to load, it tends to play up on desktop, but they can see client wins. So it's good, rapport builder off the bat. Okay. Then we get into growth, all right? And people, I think people over-engineer this a little bit, but it is what it is. Once you know what you're selling and who you're selling it to and the problem that you solve, you've got a pretty good idea of who is that product for and who is that product not for. And then you need to go and find more of those people. I get frustrated when people say, oh, I can't find enough people. It's like there's billions and billions and billions of people on Facebook. I can guarantee there's places out there with your people. It's just sheer laziness. That's all it is. It is sheer laziness and wanting to be handed the golden ticket Facebook group to add people from. It is absolute laziness, and that is the only thing that it is. There's a couple of main places you can go. Bio groups are good, right? You got to be careful the way you do it and have respect for the owner of the group. If you add people and then you immediately message them saying, hey, I've just added you because I'm in this same buyer group as you, you will have a very short shelf life in that group, right? You will have a very, very short life in that group. Conversely, if you do add people and a conversation is struck up more naturally over time because they accept and then engage with your content and those kind of things, I think that's totally fine, right? It happens in our groups. I'm under no illusion to this fact. What I don't like and what I won't stand for is when I start getting complaints from customers. We had this week. When I start getting complaints from customers that they're being hit up in their DMs because they're in that buyer group, and that means they're being targeted because they're in that group. If it gets to the point where it's compromising a customer experience, I won't handle it lightly. Okay, but that's not to say it can't be done, right? People have a very, very scarce mindset. And honestly, in the Facebook organic land, there's a lot of hypocrisy. People are teaching this stuff and then they're saying, don't do it. And you've got it. There's a line, right? Like there's a line to this. If you're in a group and you're connecting with other people and naturally over time relationships develop and they buy stuff, whatever, it is what it is, right? We all need to accept that fact. But if you are acting in a way that compromises the experience of the product for the other people in there, you will very quickly get on the product creator's radar, and you won't last long, and you'll probably get flamed in public too. I don't do that personally. There's been times where I've come very, very close. I'm just not a fan of it, but there's plenty of other people out there who won't hesitate. So just keep that in mind. The other places you've got are free groups, active groups. If you go into a group where there's nothing going on, you don't really know the quality that you're adding. Fan pages, if people are following someone who's interested in a topic similar to what you sell, there's a good chance they're going to be into your stuff, right? And that's why we start with the offer and knowing the problem that we solve and who we can help. Because otherwise, if you don't know how you ultimately try and monetize, this stuff's pretty tricky. Right? How do you find people if you don't know what you want to ultimately sell them? And if you don't know what you ultimately want to sell them, you don't really know what your solution is. And if you don't know what your solution is, you don't know what problem you're solving. If you don't know what problem you're solving, how can you find people with that problem? Right. So that's the reason things are sequenced that way. But they're your places that you're going to go, right? Guys, there's a lot of people out there selling, found the fucking secret group on Facebook where you can add people and they're not going to waste your time, and they're all buyers and they're all ready to go and they're all essentially sitting with their credit cards ready to go. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. This is as much about the people you add as it is about what you do with those people once they're on your friends list. And it's easier to go, I think I'm adding the wrong people, because all you have to do to add a person is click a button, than to go, maybe my offer sucks, or maybe I'm not very good at sales, or maybe my content's generic and shit. So too many people, I think, are laying blame to this part when really they need to fix up the other areas, and they've got no point of difference, or they're trying to sell something they've not done, and it's as transparent as. But they're the places you can add people from. The next component of your profile is generating engagement, right? And there's a couple of factors here. Feeding the algorithm is just you engaging with other people's stuff. It's kind of like a bit of a peer-to-peer network, insofar as if you give it a bit more love, it'll give you a bit more love. Look, I don't understand the finer mechanics of how the algorithm works, but all I know is that if I engage with someone's stuff, they're probably more likely to see my stuff. If I talk to them in Messenger, they're more likely to see my stuff. If I talk to them in Messenger, I'm more likely to see their stuff, and vice versa, right? So it's looking at who are you interacting with in Messenger, who are you interacting with on the feed, and you're going to see more of that stuff. Okay, so if you're not active at all and all you do is scroll and you don't talk to anybody, your engagement's going to suck. Unless you're posting like really mega high quality or controversial stuff, which most people aren't, you're going to get crickets. Okay. The next one is the quality of the content, right? The quality of the content. So if you post stuff that's really cool and different, and uplifting, right? Like people love these wins posts that I've been doing lately. And there's plenty of people like already kind of modeling this. People love that, right? So it gets pretty solid engagement, right? Because people like seeing people win. So the quality of the content is a big one, right? Sharing opinions, this is a long form post, right? Most people will get engagement on and this is what I'm talking about, type of content. You'll see people get really strong engagement on like a quote, because it's easy for people to engage. They just read something, they're like, yeah, woo, fuck yeah, happy Monday, all that crap. It's actually a lot harder to get people to stop and engage on something. Like, look at the length of this post. This is not a short post. So you got to get people to stop and actually read this. So that's strong engagement for a long form post, right? And that's where the quality of your content is important. This is me sharing an opinion, and there's like genuinely helpful stuff in here for the people that choose to pay attention to it. So quality of the content and the type of the content. A lot of people post, you'll go to some people's profiles and they'll get like 300, 400, 500 comments, and it's like, well, what are they posting? And it's like every day is just a quote or some inspirational thing. And they're getting a ton of engagement, but it's not really that valuable, because, how well, if you were then to strike up a conversation with that person, how well do they know you? How much do they know about you? How much do they know about your products? How much do they know about the problems that you solve? How much they know about your personality and your view of the world? That's what your content needs to be doing. And if all you're posting is quotes and like generic crap, you're just going to be a sea of marketers. They honestly probably don't even know that they're engaging with your stuff. Whereas if someone stops and reads this, right, and they manage to read all the way down and then they engage, there's a pretty strong chance, if I was to message them, that they know who I am. Right. And you might go, oh yeah, but that's because you're Jacob. And that does become easier. There is more degree of that. People get to know you, but you do have to start somewhere. Right. And I started somewhere. Nobody knew me when I started. Right. So just keep this in mind. Type of content. Not all engagement is created equal. It needs to be like genuine engagement for it to be worth anything. And the quality of the content and how much you feed the algorithm is going to impact how much love you get there. Okay, but don't become like, there's people who are so obsessed with this metric too. So don't become too obsessed with it. It's important to a degree, but it's not the whole world, if that makes sense. Okay, so they're really cool components, and we're going to talk content in a second. So stick with me. Common mistakes here: adding the wrong people. And when I say that, I mean they either aren't looking at the profiles, or they've got no alignment to what they're ultimately trying to sell. They're not understanding the awareness spectrum and how people move along that awareness spectrum, all that kind of stuff. Short form engagement seeking, but valueless content. That's what I was just talking about. They have a short-term mindset, right? They expect to be able to start doing this stuff on their profile and it's going to make bank overnight. It's not going to happen. They jump around from offer to offer. I see this in the affiliate space so fucking much, so much. It's like, all right, whatever's the latest trend, I'm going to jump on that. And then it's like, well, why is everyone, why didn't they buy off me? Why did they go buy off someone else? And it's like, well, you just jumped on the bandwagon the same time as everybody else and you're not thinking for yourself, right? You're not doing anything unique, right? And a week ago, you were talking about how one thing's the greatest thing in the world, and now you're talking about how the next thing's the greatest thing in the world. Like, how much respect and credibility can you possibly expect to build up with your audience if, every 2.5 minutes you're jumping from one offer to another, right? Like, it's not going to happen. You are hampering your group. You're hampering your profile. So just be conscious of that, right? And the way this works, which people don't think about, is you're putting out content over time and people are watching. And they might be like, oh, that product that, Brian's talking about is an interesting thing, but I'm not quite ready, right? I'm going to sit back and see what happens. And that may happen consciously. It may happen subconsciously. And then over time, Brian starts sharing more of his results with it. He starts sharing client testimonials. He starts, debunking some myths, handling objections in his content, all that kind of stuff, until eventually that person reads it and they're like, shit, that does make sense to me, right? Not you. That makes sense to me. I'm going to go ahead, right? I'm going to buy. But if you do that for a week with one product, like focusing on what that product does for a week, and then the next week you're into something different, like you don't give yourself the chance to build up that momentum, if that makes sense. And then same with niches, right? Like people jump around between different niches or niches, whatever you want to call them. Like they change their underwear. You need some consistency. There's a lot to be said for consistency, right? Like I solely did on my profile and in this group, I solely spoke about affiliate marketing stuff, and from the start of 2018 until the end of 2020, start of 2021. And in the last 6 months, I've expanded it to be more info marketing, right? So I changed niche once, and it's not even a change. It's more just a broadening. It's not a hardcore pivot from like cats to dogs. It's more just like, we're just going to open up the scope of what we're talking about here a little bit. So be conscious of that too, So they're really the fundamentals when it comes to your profile. If anyone's got any questions on that, drop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. But that's really the basics of kind of getting it set up. We're going to talk about what content to create in a second. It's another thing people overcomplicate. We'll roll on. So the other core pillar of building your audience using these organic strategies is groups, right? So this is probably where you're watching this right now. People say, when should I start my group? I say it depends. It depends how much time you've got. It depends on your capacity to create content. While it gives you an extra touch point, an extra opportunity to talk to more people, if you're really tight on time or you're just starting to learn this content game or you're just kind of figuring it out, I'd focus on one at least for a little while before adding another, right? Because every extra piece of complexity that you add to your daily kind of routine is just another place where you can kind of stumble. So keep that in mind. A couple of core components to getting this set up. You've got, we'll jump over to my group, but you've got the type of the group, the name, the description, the welcome post, your cover photo, and rules. Okay, so let's talk through these. So cover photo, again, it's congruent. The messaging is all congruent from profile to group, and it's congruent if you go to my website as well. When people come over here, it's all congruent. Build your info business ecosystem to 50K plus per month. Build your info business ecosystem to 50K plus per month. Build your info, like it's all congruent. It's a congruent experience for people. Okay. And so at the moment I'm big on pushing them over to here because then people can subscribe to the email newsletter, which if you haven't done, go do that. And then they can see what I do, right? Like we do high ticket affiliate marketing. I do info marketing. I do coaching and consulting, all that kind of jazz. So they can see what I'm all about, but it's all congruent. It's really, really important. So that's one part. Then you've got the name, right? So people read this and they know who it's for. If you're a coach, course creator, or an affiliate, it's going to be something in here for you. Same in the description. You're going to want to put some like keywords and stuff in here: high ticket affiliate marketing, course creation, info products, coaching, consulting. That's from an SEO perspective inside of Facebook, as much as like if anyone does stumble upon it and read it, it tells them what it's all about, and put a bit of time and effort into this. Like make it something a little bit different and unique. You see a lot of people just kind of come in and copy. Rules is another thing you can do if you want. You can have some group rules, just kind of sets the scene, and it positions you as the leader a little bit more too. If people read it and they're like, oh, there's rules here, this is a little bit of a different type than the normal, free for all chaos in most groups or crickets. So that's the other core components. The other things you can think about, your welcome post. So if you come in here and into the announcements, that was another post I did. This is an offer post. So this is our welcome post, similar to the description, but says, here's the rules, here's what we're all about, here's the big 3 models that we talk about. Just tells them, a little bit about me, and then gives them a call to action. So just structure your group up with a little bit of effort when you build it, and then over time you can make it better and better. And then the other thing that's kind of not seen here is your group questions. So when people join, they get asked a bunch of questions. You can play around with those. I've done probably nearly every iteration under the sun. We've done, pushing them to YouTube. We've done pushing them to a bot. We've done pushing them to email, asking questions, and then using that question to fuel the conversation. Like, just play around with it and test and try a bunch of different things. But ultimately, you want to use them as a gateway to filter the quality of the prospect. If someone can't bother answering questions, then they're probably not going to do much once they get inside anyway. Okay. So that's just a couple of points on getting your group set up. I would recommend that you do a private group. I've never run a public group, so I can't really talk about it. But to me, it's kind of like the group. That's the whole point, right? It's like a community, private community. So that naturally makes sense to me. Some others may know the benefits to having a public group, but I've always had private, and that's what we've always used. So that's the path I'd go down. Then once you've set your group up, the next thing you're going to face is, okay, well, I got to get my first kind of few hundred members, right? And I've written 300 to 500 because from my experience, if you can get that initial body of members in and get your engagement to a decent level, that's when your organic growth is going to start. And by organic growth, I mean Facebook's going to start recommending your group. So in order to get these, right, there's only so many ways you can do it. Your profile, right? And this is why I say start with your profile and then add the group, because if you build up a few thousand people on your profile, then when you go to start your group, you can move them over, or any other audience that you've got, email list, podcast, YouTube, Instagram. When your group goes live, do a post on them, send an email, whatever. And then going forward, so for example, I was showing you guys over here, when people come here, they enter their email. Over the next few days, they're going to get emails inviting them to this group, telling them to check out my YouTube channel, and telling them to look at the podcast. So in the space of 3-4 days, they're now on my email list. They've got the opportunity to join the group. They've got the opportunity to watch me on YouTube, and they've got the opportunity to listen to the podcast, right? And then if they join the group, I can add them as a friend. So that's another touch point. And that happens all from one email opt-in automatically. So this is why we're pushing people here, because they will end up here. The active ones, the hyperactive ones, will end up here anyway. And if we aren't already friends, we can then end up friends as well. So this is really the ecosystem element of it and building it out so that you're moving people around different places. And that's as much about different touch points as it is about de-risking over time as well. When your business gets up to the point where mine is, where we're doing, $70,000, $80,000 a month, you want to be moving over to other platforms, and you want people to know that you're on other platforms in case something was to happen, right? So it's beneficial for that. But that's how you're ultimately going to get your first few hundred members, right? It's going to be by, starting to put valuable stuff into the group and giving people a reason to join from the other places. And if you've got zero audience anywhere else, you need to go and build one before you start the group. That's just the reality of it, because you need an initial body of members to really start. Okay. So if you're sitting here watching this and you literally have no audience anywhere, no one knows you at all, your group's not going to be your place to start. Your profile would be where you would start. Okay. And then some common mistakes around this short-term mindset, guys. I've been running this thing since 2018, right? Like, it's not an overnight thing. If you're starting a group and you want to use it to make a ton of money, you can't have like a short-term mindset unless it's for like a launch, right? Like unless you're not planning on turning it into like a long-term community. If I was doing a launch for a particular product on a particular topic, I could do like a pop-up group. That's fine, but know what it's for, right? And treat it accordingly and think accordingly. If you're not enjoying it and you're only thinking about the bucks from day one, you're probably going to struggle with it, because it's, like I said, I've been putting content in here for 3 and a half years. So you got to enjoy it, right? And then on the flip side though, I think a lot of people wait too long to make offers. So, and this is a trap I fell into early. I was like, oh, I'll just, I'll keep putting free stuff in for months and months and months and months and months. And then eventually you go to make an offer and it's like, oh, well, we're not used to this, right? So I think making offers early is fine. But you need to be provided. It needs to be outweighed by the helpful stuff that you put in there too, right? And we're going to talk about what that can look like in a second. So that's really they're the fundamentals of getting your group and your profile set up. Really, it's about setting it up the right way, using the things we spoke about, then starting to grow them, right? Getting some engagement, adding people, getting that first 300 to 500 members, and getting that machine starting to move. Okay, that's your first thing that you need to do. Beyond that, a couple of other things I want to talk to you about are, we're going to get into the content part in a second. I'm going to walk you through some examples, but you've got, just understand these things, right? Lead sources and temperature, right? If you've got, let's say you've got an existing conversation with someone and they've booked a call or you've made an offer, then they're a pretty hot lead, right? If you've got an existing conversation with someone, then you're chatting business, you're kind of diagnosing back and forth a little bit, like what their problems are. That's probably like a warm lead. And then if you've got a conversation going, but you're still, early days, right? You might just be bantering back and forth, or they engage with your stuff a bit, you engage with their stuff a bit, but you've not really got into the nitty gritty. Then they're going to be a colder, but they're warming up because at least they know who you are, right? The coldest is like existing convo where you've sent one message and no reply. Like that's cold. So this is just understanding temperature. And the reason this is important is because as you sit down each day, you want to make sure that you're focusing on the hot stuff first, because it's like, all right, well, there's no point me, if I've only got so many hours in a day, there's no point me just jumping straight here, because I'm potentially missing out on what's going on up here. And these people might be, closer to the hole, so to speak. All right. So you can work your way down through there. And then another thing that people overcomplicate is like, oh, I'm not having enough good conversations. It's like, well, there's only so many places they can come from, right? People who engage with your stuff, your content, watch your stories, new member requests, inbound friend requests. Tread carefully here, right? Be very, very curated in who you accept, because you will get more pitches coming in. And then new friends you add, but personalize it, right? Like personalize, engage with their story, or find something on their profile that is cool, and use that as your initiator, right? Make it relevant to them. Because think about the psychology here. It's like they put that thing, if you're looking at their content and you're like, all right, how do I kick off a convo here? They put time and effort into that piece of content. They thought it was important enough to share it with the world. Encourage that and use that to your advantage. Use that to initiate the conversation. And as we said in the partly, it'd be weird. This is hard for some people, but if you come across as like mega creepy, you're gonna struggle. Okay. So there's just a couple of important things to keep in mind from your group and from your profile. Understanding lead source and temp, and understanding your new conversation sources is going to keep things ticking over. All right. Now we get into the content. All right. So I've gone through a couple of different content models that I've used throughout my time, and this is the way I'm kind of thinking about it at the moment. Really 3 main types: nurturing, which is like this video or this live is a nurturing piece of content. It's building trust and goodwill with the audience because I'm helping you guys out with something that's relevant to you. Then you've got lead generation. So that's kind of like halfway in between. You're probably providing some value by way of a lead magnet or something similar. I'll show you an example. But it's not quite a hard offer. And then you've got offers, right? And we also do some that are kind of like halfway in between here. So we'll do like it's a lead gen, but it's pretty clear there's like an offer baked into it. So they're like kind of halfway in between. So we'll talk about, so what I want to do is pull up some examples of these for you. All right. So we're talking about nurturing content. So I just want to give you all a couple of examples of nurturing content. This is what I've been doing a bit of recently, just sharing some wins. People seem to really like this. It's an opportunity to kind of flex a little bit. You're proving, I walk the walk in a world where there's so many people just talking the talk. You let people know you've got offers going on. Like I have people reach out about the inner circle because they're like, oh, what's that? And I'm not even pitching, but I'm just saying, hey, there's this thing going on. They may not, like, I got 2 shout outs from people from Dan and Andrea about my podcast. And they'll be like, oh shit, I didn't even know Jacob had a podcast. Right. And so they'll go look for it, or they'll message me and say, hey, can I have a link to your podcast? Right. Or, oh, Jacob went live twice this week. It's kind of like a summation of what's happened. Right. These aren't all just, oh, inner circle. We had a student that did 45 grand a month. They're not all like that. It's like, oh, I did a YouTube video. Oh, I better go watch that. Right. So these are just like good way to move people around your ecosystem and let them know what you've got going on. Right. Really simple stuff. So these are nurturing posts, right? These aren't me making offers. I'll use these heavily, especially in a phase at the moment where I've been building out the inner circle. We've been working on SAA 2.0. I'm not really running any campaigns at the moment. So I'm heavy on the nurturing content, right? That's why I'm doing lives like this. This is what I'd call like an ecosystem builder type post. So this is and me uploading a video onto YouTube, right? So Lauren's commented and I've linked her over. So I'm moving people around the ecosystem, right? That's another good way to nurture. This is an opinion piece, right? So this is me sharing my opinion on something. Good way to, attract and repel the people that are out there doing this stuff. They're not going to like it, but they're not my client either, right? So I push them away. So sharing your opinions on things. Hey, I've seen this thing. This is bullshit. I don't agree with this. My view is this. What's your genuine view? And I think with content, and this is similar to kind of the thing I was just talking about with you, Andrea, like try to approach this from a perspective of if you're having fun with it, you're genuinely like, having a good time in your conversations, in your content, that's going to rub off, right? There's really not, like, I'm giving you some frameworks and examples here. There's really no like perfect, use this 4-line post and then use this 3-line post and then this long form. Like it's just, it doesn't exist. It's about cultivating a strong environment for people to engage with your stuff to the point that they want to buy. You're doing a good job of this when you get people, and this happens a bit. They'll go, hey, Jacob, I bought this. What else have you got? And then they'll buy everything. That's when you're doing a good job of this. Okay. So that was an opinion piece. Good way to, attract and repel accordingly. I'm moving through these pretty quickly because there's quite a few, but you guys get the point, right? Here's what I did recently. This is just like reminding people, what do you do, right? Who are you? What do you actually do? Not massive engagement, but that's fine. It happens. I use this on my profile as well. So you can repurpose content. That's totally fine. I would stagger when you post them. So if I post something on my profile, I'll give it 6 to 12 hours before I post it in my group. But you could also, do it at the opposite end of the week. And this is just reminding people who I am, what I stand for. If people need to be really cuddled, they're not really my cup of tea. They're not going to appreciate my kind of brashness a lot of the time. If they expecting, just because they pay me, that it means they're not going to have to do any work. Again, definitely not my cup of tea. So you need to come up with what these are for you, right? There's a really good exercise you can do. And it's like, what do I stand for? What don't I stand for? What will I tolerate? What will I not tolerate? What am I for? What am I against? And constantly revisiting those things, because your viewpoints and your perspectives will change, right? Like I went through a phase last year where we were learning a lot on the fly from building SAA, and I had to put up a lot more boundaries because people just were not following the rules. We were taking on hundreds of new customers and shit was getting hectic. So I had to put up massive barriers and boundaries to myself because otherwise I wouldn't have made it through the year. I've relaxed that a little bit, but you need to have these course corrections over time, right? And before SAA, I hadn't even thought about the like boundaries thing because I hadn't dealt with massive customers because I'd been mostly an affiliate and I hadn't had to handle that. So it's, you do stuff, you break stuff, you figure out, all right, how do I fix this? And then you probably, overcorrect a little bit, right? Like Andrew, if you're if you're struggling with transitioning people, my counterintuitive advice to you would be go harder sooner and get, because typically what happens when people are overthinking this like cold to warm to hot thing is there's fear about moving that conversation to that point. So what I'd encourage you to do is to overcome that fear. And the fear comes from the unknown. It's like, oh shit, if I say the wrong thing, what's going to happen, right? The fear can also come from kind of a scarce approach, going, if I burn this lead, there's, I don't have any more. So you need to put that to the side. So what I'd encourage you to do is think about it from a perspective of, if I go a little bit harder, a little bit sooner, and risk, pissing them off or risk losing the lead, but that's totally okay because there's so many more people, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to start to realize that if you are more forward with this, it's actually not that bad, and you'll overcome that fear, which will mean you're going to naturally settle back into more of a rhythm where you're more comfortable moving conversations forward, right? Sometimes you need to overcorrect. Like if I go through a lull in terms of creating content, and then because I'm away building something or whatever, to get back into it, I'll go like really fucking hard on the content, and I'll do like daily YouTube videos for like a couple of weeks, or I'll post like 2 or 3 times a day. It's not ideal, right? It's not perfect for the algorithm, but it gets me back into that groove, and then I settle back into like the 1 a day or a couple of weeks, whatever is the ultimate groove. But I find like overcorrecting gets me kind of back into it, and then I come back. Hopefully that makes sense. That may just be me. Might be a bit weird. So that's just another example, telling people what you do, what you're for, what you're not for, all that kind of stuff. You guys can have a look at doing something like that. I mean, you guys can see all these posts in the group, but I think it helps to see kind of the behind the scenes and the processing. Here's the live I literally did last week. So very similar to this one. Just raw value, right? Just helpful stuff. Some of the stuff we covered in this one is like more intricate than what people are charging for. So look for your opportunities to stand out. So just going live and sharing helpful stuff and delivering it in your style, right? As much as content is about the value that you provide, delivering it with your style is just as important. It's just as important, right? Because it's as much as they need to get value from you in advance, typically in order for them to buy from you, they need to want to buy from you specifically, if that makes sense. Like, they need to fall in love with you as much as they fall in love with the help that you've provided them. So if you get up and you're delivering how-to content and you're just stiff and robotic, and I'm like, hello, today I'm going to talk about, and you can get no read on me or what I'm about or who I am, you're kind of missing the point. And that's like the second layer to delivering content, is delivering it in your voice so that you're building up that kind of brand style. And then this is another good one. This is one from March, and I'm due to do another one of these again. But these are like a recap post, right? So you could do a weekly recap, monthly recap. This was a quarterly-ish recap. No, it was more like 2 months, January, Feb. But, tell people what you've been up to, right? Again, it's similar to the wins one, right? Like, it's a good opportunity to put it this way, if your business isn't fueling your content's going to be a chore. Your content's going to be a chore. The stuff you're doing every day should be giving you lots of ideas and momentum for your content, right? Like, I can get up and talk about this shit for hours off the cuff. Like, I put these notes together to give you guys some insight into how organized I am. I put these together in the 15, 20 minutes before we jumped on, because I've got this is what I do every day, right? So it shouldn't be hard. And then, yeah, so these recap posts are just a good way to tell a story, right? Again, another opportunity to kind of tell people what you've been doing, tell them why they should pay attention to you. We won the 2 Comma Club. Some clients put up some numbers. We put up some numbers, right? Here's some cool photos. There's a 2 Comma Club award, Rolodex coaching program we rolled out, me and Jamie, some sales data, 160 grand in January 1 to March 4th. That's from another Stripe account, right? So just like, these are cool. If people read this, they're like, fuck, that's, they got some cool stuff going on. And that's like an expanded version of the wins one, right? This is like 2 days. whereas that other one's like 2 months. But they're a good one you can use. And just keep track, right? Like keep track of cool stuff that's happening, and then you can make a post about it. Weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever. You can also do forward looking, right? Like this is retrospective. You can also do forward looking and go, here's what's coming up this month, right? Like here's what's coming up in August. I'm going to be doing lives on this. I got YouTube videos on this. We're going to be talking on this about the podcast. I'm interviewing this person. We're rolling out this program. We're closing down this program. I'm working with this client on this project. You can do forward-looking stuff as well. And that comes back to the point about let your content, let what you do in your business fuel your content as much as possible, because then it's really easy. You're not reinventing the wheel. Anything on nurturing, like those post templates, you shouldn't need any more than that. And what's going to happen is the pendulum's going to swing back and forth. Like if we go into a campaign, like for example, in February, we did a campaign for the Rolodex. There wasn't a lot of nurturing content. I'd done that previously, right? So, and then we went into like a 2-week big pitch on Rolodex. So like at the moment, we're not running a hard campaign on anything. So I'm heavy on the nurturing. Like it's going to swing. You need to be flexible with this stuff, right? There's not just going to be one thing that you always do forever and ever. It's going to depend what's going on in your business. A couple more quick examples. So this is just like lead generation stuff. This is the one I put up this week that I've still got to respond to. Yeah, so I put this up on Friday or Saturday or whatever it was. New PDF I'm pulling together, and you can do these before. Like I've nearly finished it now, but when I put this up, I hadn't made this yet. I just knew I was going to, right? So you can just pull an idea, post it, check the reaction. Okay, this is clearly something people want, right? And you guys can see, this is going to be me talking about the stuff I'm talking about on the live now. So you can talk, you can cross over content. This is another one I did not too long ago. Oh, maybe it was. I don't know where this year's disappearing to, but no, it was in February. I can't believe that was in February. That feels like I posted that yesterday. This is just a little one-liner that I put together, right? 78 comments. You generate leads, really basic stuff. And then you never know where those conversations can go. Then these are kind of like hybrid lead gen / offer. So they're going to be longer form posts, right? So I'm highlighting a problem, right? Your phone doesn't cha-ching as much as you'd like, does it? And if people are sitting there going, yeah, I want more sales, then they're going to be going, yeah, that's me, right? And then I'm elaborating on that problem. I'm really getting into their psyche in terms of clearly showing that I understand, right? If they're in their DMs and all they hear is, I'll think about it, it's too expensive, or silence, right? They're like, yep, that's me. I've done that. I'm there. That happened today. And then I give them some value, quick tips on fixing it. And then I make them an offer, 50 grand in 12 days with a Google Doc, brand new offer. And then that's pushing them over to a business in page. Sometimes business inbox. Sometimes we use that to close sales, because then I can put someone from my team in there and I'm not doing it personally in my inbox. But yeah, that's like, you guys can read that. Like that's an example of that's kind of like everything in it. It's lead generation. It's an offer being made. There's value, there's story. Like it's all in one, that one. It's kind of like everything rolled into one. But you see, we're talking like here about what's the goal, right? The goal of these is to nurture. The goal of these is to generate leads. The goal of these is to generate leads and make an offer. The goal of these next ones we'll talk about is to make an offer. So what's the goal of the piece of content? Think about that and then create the content. Again, similar, highlighting problems, showing how to understand the problems, giving them some advice on how to fix it. Right? There's a standard structure here. And then making an offer. Tap over to the inbox. And you guys can go check out these posts in the group, but so these are longer form. And the reason, so think about this. If you generate a lead off like a one-line piece of content, think about how pre-framed they could possibly be. Not that pre-framed. Whereas if someone reads this and they fully understand this and then they reach out, we're a lot further along the journey, and my content has done that for me instead of me having to do that individually, if that makes sense. So this is me just providing some value, but the goal is the same. Lead gen and then make an offer. So these are these hybrid style posts. This is just me talking about my journey a little bit, people that have helped me. Greg, Spencer, Dave, Dan, Jamie, Chris, Ben Slater. This is talking about a bit about plan of how I can help people. Just a bit of results. And then lead gen into an offer. Okay, similar stuff. And then the hardcore offer posts. So this is, I'd been away for a week and I'd been kind of building out some stuff and then came back and was just like, yo, what's going on? Here's some photos of this cool holiday I'm on. I've just released this thing. If you want it, link over. And look, my metadata or whatever they call it is fucked up. So things don't have to be perfect, guys. And then that links over to a sales page. So that's a hardcore offer post. Like that's just like, boom, if you want this thing, here's a link, grab it. But think about the goal before you write it. Is the goal to generate leads? Is the goal to sell? This is a lead generation, but it's crystal clear that I'm making an offer, right? So it's a hardcore offer. It's like, if you message me off the back of this, you know I'm going to pitch you something, right? It's like, are we doing this? Are we going to work together? So it's an offer. Even though I don't put a link to like an order form, because sometimes we don't. Like this was a $6,000 offer, so I'm not just going to put a $6,000 order form in the group. I could, but in this case, I just said, ping me a message. But it's crystal clear. That's right. We're rolling out this program. Here's some deets. If you want it, let's dance. This is like a testimonial, and then different call to action, right? So in this one, I'm telling them to engage. So look, you can play around with all of these different things, right? You can play around with all of them. This is me talking about how Seth took the fast cash Rolodex and did 30 grand in 10 days with one of the like 8 strategies that are in it. Again, business and what you do fueling your content. And if you don't have stuff like this to talk about, one, it's okay if you're early on, but get out there and do stuff, make shit happen, help people, right? Get results for people. It doesn't have to be 30 grand in 10 days. Oh, look, I helped someone spike their engagement. I helped someone generate some leads. I helped someone fix up their profile. I helped someone fix up their group, right? There's a ton of things you can do, but start getting feedback from people because it's another mechanism, right? Like between testimonials and feedback, sharing wins and what's going on, doing lives with helpful stuff, like you don't actually need that much more in terms of nurturing type content. And it can all come from what you're doing in your business. It's all fueled by what you're doing. So I think a lot of people view them as two separate things. It's like, oh, I've got to do business, and then I've got to come back and come up with all these amazing, creative, unique content ideas. And it's like, well, you don't. It's just talk about the shit that you've got going on. That's what people are most interested in anyway. It's kind of like reality TV. And over time, that becomes more and more powerful because like there's people in here that have been watching and consuming my stuff for years, and they've seen it go from like, oh, Jacob's group's got 200 members and Jacob's making a couple of grand a month, to Jacob's got, thousands of people following him and won these awards and is making, $60, $70, $80,000 a month, right? Like create that journey and it just becomes more and more powerful. And then this is just similar, another testimonial into an offer. Again, linked over to the sales page. Okay. So they're just some examples of different pieces of content, and it starts with the goal. What's the goal? Is the goal to nurture and provide value? Is the goal to generate leads? And then you kind of see where that lead goes. Is the goal to generate a lead specific to a certain offer, or is the goal just to pitch an offer? Right. Keep the intention in mind as you create the piece of content, or get crystal clear on it before you create the piece of content, and it will really help. Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully you all got something out of that. That's really the game when it comes to building up an audience on Facebook. So it's about setting it up the right way. It's about doing the things you need to do that we spoke about to grow it, putting the content out there to nurture it, to nurture the audience, to generate leads, and to sell. That's the whole game in a nutshell. So check this, revisit this if you need to, and then watch it in conjunction with the other ones that I've done over the last couple of weeks, and it'll start to really all come together to form a picture. They're in the guide section if you want to check it out in my free group. Other than that, the folks that have jumped on, appreciate it. I hope you all have a really, really great week, and I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.